Hi, I'm David Fleming from the Disciples Ignited YouTube channel, where we're focused on Jesus advancing his kingdom and preparing his disciples. Now, yesterday we talked about how Paul, after he finished his first missionary tour, goes back to Antioch and is hit with a bombshell. Some people had visited his church in Antioch and started teaching them a doctrine from hell. It was that they had to follow the law, that they had to be circumcised in order to start following Jesus. Now, Paul deals with this, but when he went down to Jerusalem, he and Silas, and they spoke to the apostles about this, they found that it was much worse than they had ever been led to believe. Some of the believers there in the Jerusalem church, some Pharisees that had begun to follow Jesus and called Jesus the Messiah, they stood up and they said, not only must these Gentiles be circumcised, but they have got to begin to follow the law if they're going to follow Jesus. Now, let's deal with this. Why was this so important? Why was this a problem? Was Paul against people being circumcised? No, he was circumcised. He was Jewish. But we've got to understand, only the Jews were really circumcised back then. Gentiles were not. But it was a fact of the matter, it was the Jewish mindset that if you are going to please God, you've got to keep a list of rules. You've got to keep the law. In fact, it was so ingrained within them that in order to have a relationship with God, you've got to tick all the boxes. You've got to prove yourself to God. And in other words, you've got to earn your relationship with God. That is what Paul was against. See, Jesus had revealed himself to Paul in the desert and had taught Paul the gospel. And in essence, it was a gospel that shared the mystery that our relationship with God comes not by fulfilling the law, although fulfilling the law is good, but that's not going to earn you salvation. Salvation is by faith in Jesus and Jesus alone. Let me read to you what he later on wrote to the Ephesians, and he said, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not works." You see, that was what Paul was fighting for. He wanted an understanding, a clear understanding among the Jewish believers and Gentile believers that salvation is by faith in Jesus alone. God's grace provides it. Our faith enables us to receive it, not our works. Well, see, the Jewish understanding, as I've already shared, was that you have to earn your salvation. You have to earn your relationship with God. But Jesus himself had tried to prepare the disciples for this revelation that was soon to come through the Apostle Paul. Jesus taught the disciples, and we read about it in John chapter 10, verse 16. "I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd." And so Jesus was trying to prepare his Jewish disciples that he was going to be drawing in the Gentiles. Well, Gentiles did start getting saved after Jesus was resurrected, and the church was blossoming, the church was growing, Gentiles were coming into the church. But sad to say, many of the Jewish believers in Jesus expected the Gentiles to become Jewish proselytes. That means that they would begin to keep the Jewish laws and the traditions, be circumcised and so forth. So they had to become good Jewish people, good Jewish Gentiles, proselytes, and then they could follow Jesus. And that was what Paul was not going to stand for. So to break this mindset, he stood firm and he says, salvation is by faith in Jesus. And that's it. It is a gift of God, not by our works. Paul is going to have a fight on his hand. Let's talk more about it tomorrow.